Quiet, please. Can we start the Zoom webinar? Zoom host, can we start the Zoom webinar?
Webinars begun.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New York City hybrid hearing on the committees on oversight and investigation, together with housing and building. Please silence all electronic devices. Chairs, we're ready to begin.
So, good morning. I'm Gail Brewer, a City Council member and Chair of the City Council's Committee on Oversight and Investigations. We're joined today by Committee on Housing and Buildings, Chair Sanchez. As we're all aware, the city is in the middle of a major staffing crisis. Critical government services are in short supply. We just don't have enough people to do the work. This committee uncovered earlier this session, the Oversight and Investigations, that one of the agencies hardest hit by the staffing crisis is the Department of Buildings. DOB has consistently had a vacancy rate of over 20%, one of the highest among city agencies, with at least 100 full-time employees missing. At our September hearing, we asked the administration how vacancies at DOB were impacting the department's ability to perform its important work. The administration did not have many details to share at that time. Now, on the subject today, is that allegations have surfaced asserting that the department is failing to scrutinize the qualification of gas line workers, as required by Local Law 150 of 2016. One would hope that DOB, the agency responsible for ensuring safety at construction sites and in buildings throughout our city, would take great pains to carefully review the qualifications of anyone who performs hazardous gas work. But we do feel that these allegations paint a different picture. The department claims that individuals without the requisite, the people who are concerned claim that individuals without the requisite qualifications are performing gas work on projects throughout the city, putting public health and safety at risk. These allegations are deeply concerning and warrant a thorough investigation, and that's why we're here today. Today we will be asking DOB about the process for reviewing gas worker qualifications pursuant to Local Law 150. We will also attempt to learn whether the high vacancy rate at DOB is having any impact on the department's ability to ensure robust compliance with the law. I know there's a lawsuit, and I know DOB officials may be reluctant to share certain information given the lawsuit, but this is a matter of public concern. New Yorkers deserve to know what DOB is doing to ensure that gas work performed in their neighborhoods is completed safely. I hope we can approach today's conversation with the public's need for transparency on this topic. I would like to thank all my colleagues who have joined us today. I see Council Members Barron and Dinowitz. I would also like to thank the staff of the City Council's Oversight and Investigations Division, Kevin Frick, Zach Mayer, and Katie Sinise for all their hard work putting this hearing together. And I certainly want to thank from my staff, Shula Warren and Sam Goldsmith. I'll now turn it over to the awesome co-chair of Housing and Buildings, Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you so much, Chair Brewer. Good morning, everyone. I am Councilmember Pierina Sanchez, Chair of the Committee on Housing and Buildings. Thank you to my co-chair, Councilmember Brewer, for holding this joint hearing today. As my co-chair stated, today we are conducting oversight on gas qualification work, which is overseen by the Department of Buildings. Any person working on a gas line in New York City today is required to have a license. This requirement came into place after a series of truly devastating and avoidable gas explosions several years ago. An explosion in East Harlem in March of 2014 killed 8 New Yorkers, left more than 50 people injured, and destroyed 2 buildings. In the East Village in 2015, 2 people died, over 20 people were injured, and multiple buildings were destroyed as a result of an illegal installation of a gas delivery system. Those tragedies brought to light the potential dangers of unqualified gas line work. So, in 2016, the City Council took action. passing a package of legislation to enhance safety standards for gas piping systems. Those laws outlined the qualifications needed for gas work, going into effect January of 2020. The laws did the following. They required periodic inspections of gas piping systems, required building owners to notify tenants of procedures that should be followed when there is a suspected gas leak, and designated gas piping violations as immediately hazardous. But passing legislation isn't enough. It is vital that laws are both followed and properly enforced. It is the responsibility of DOB to administer and uphold them. And it is the responsibility of the City Council to conduct oversight over the Department of Buildings to make sure that New Yorkers are safe. As my co-chair stated, we've heard disturbing allegations that the Department of Buildings is failing in its duty to properly enforce these laws, potentially putting New Yorkers at risk of the exact same types of tragedies that led to the law's passage in the first place. I look forward to hearing from the department today about their efforts to increase the safety of our gas infrastructure and exploring ways the City Council can be partners in improving these processes where improvements can be made. Before turning it over to the committee council to administer the oath, I'd like to, in addition to the oversight and investigation staff, I'd like to thank my staff, Chief of Staff Sam Cardenas, Communications and Legislation Director Kadeem Robinson, Housing and Buildings Dream Team, Audrey Sun, Taylor Zaloni, Jose Conde, and Charles Kim, as well as all of my colleagues that are here today. I'd like to acknowledge Councilmember Carr. With that, Council, can you administer the oath? Or back to my co-chair.
And just Councilmember Kagan is here too. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you, chairs. We'll now hear testimony from the Department of Buildings. Before we begin, I will administer the affirmation. Panelists, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before these committees and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin.
Good morning, Chair Sanchez, Chair Brewer, and members of the Committee of Housing and Buildings and Oversight and Investigations. I'm Kazimir Vilenchik, Acting Commissioner of the New York City Department of Buildings, and I'm joined today by Guillermo Patina, Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs. We are pleased to be here to discuss the important issue of gas safety. Before I discuss the department efforts to ensure that gas work is conducted in a safe manner and our work to improve gas safety over the years, I would like to thank the City Council for its partnership on this issue. The City Council had a strong track record of working to improve gas safety. In 2016, following the tragic gas explosion in the East Village in 2015, the City Council passed a package of laws intended to improve gas safety, which built upon stringent regulations in the New York City construction codes, some of which I will discuss in my testimony today. Keeping New York City construction regulations updated is a top priority for the department. This work involves hundreds of dedicated professionals who volunteer their time to update the construction codes alongside the department, including regulations related to who can conduct plumbing work and how plumbing work, including gas work, can be conducted. Regarding the professionals who can conduct plumbing work, the department has a robust licensing program and currently licenses or registers nearly 24 different trades, including approximately 1,150 master plumbers and 1,600 journeyperson plumbers. Only licensed master plumbers or those working under their supervision can perform plumbing work. With respect to those working under the supervision of licensed master plumbers, it is important to emphasize that the master plumbers licensed by the department is responsible for their work and the work of the individuals working under their supervision. This includes ensuring that the individuals they retain to work under their supervision are appropriately qualified to conduct the work they engaged in. In order for an individual to be licensed as a master plumber, they must demonstrate that they have the appropriate experience to the department, which generally includes relevant education or experience planning, designing, or installing plumbing system under the supervision of licensed master plumber. It should also be noted that the department regularly take actions to suspend or revoke the licenses, registrations, or filing privileges of professionals who work unsafely and put their lives or the lives of others at risk, which include licensed master plumbers. Information regarding this disciplinary history of such professionals is made public on the website so the public can make informed decisions when hiring a professional to work on a construction project. We urge New Yorkers to research the construction professionals they plan on retaining, which include ensuring that they are appropriately licensed or registered and able to conduct permitted construction work. Within the plumbing discipline, the construction code regulation that apply to a particular construction project can vary. The construction codes include the plumbing code, which largely contain the provisions that would apply to a construction project involving plumbing work, including but not limited to chapters dedicated to water heaters, water supply and distribution, sanitary drainage, and storm drainage. There is also a separate fuel gas code, which contains the provision that would apply to a construction project involving fuel gas piping systems or appliances. Licensed master plumbers are responsible for complying with applicable construction code provisions and for performing applicable progress inspections, special inspections, and final inspection for certain scopes of work that they have been issued permits for. Where work does not pass any code-required inspections, permit holders are responsible for ensuring that all necessary corrections be made to such work before final inspection is requested from the department. With respect to final inspection by the department, Local Law 151 of 2016 requires the department to perform all final inspections of gas piping system in the presence of the permit holder or their representative, which further increased gas safety by ensuring that gas is not turned on until department inspections perform their own independent inspection after work has been completed. In addition to being licensed by the department to perform plumbing work and complying with stringent construction code regulations, individuals performing gas work must separately demonstrate that they are qualified to perform such work. This requirement was created by Local Law 150 of 2016 and requires that anyone performing gas work possess either department-issued master plumber license or qualification for gas work, which would allow an individual to perform gas work under the supervision of licensed master plumber. In order to qualify for gas work qualification, an individual must demonstrate that they have appropriate experience to perform gas work and may need to take department-approved training program of at least 16 hours relating to gas work. Gas work qualification card must be carried by individuals at all times while they engage in gas work. Separately, the Fuel Gas Code also requires individuals performing gas work to demonstrate additional qualification if the work they engaged in requires welding, which includes attaining additional certification. Finally, Local Law 152 of 2016 also requires that gas piping system in all buildings except for 1 and 2 family homes be inspected by licensed master plumber or individual working under the supervision of at least once every 4 years. As part of this inspection requirement, building owners must hire a licensed plumber to inspect exposed gas piping within their building periodically. The results of this inspection must be submitted to the department, and any unsafe or hazardous conditions identified during such inspections must be corrected. The current inspection cycle began in 2020 and will run through this year. It should be noted that the building owners, including owners of smaller property, have expressed that they have had challenges complying with this newly introduced inspection requirement, citing the cost of inspections and the availability of plumbers as a concern. Recognizing such concern, the City Council has delayed inspection deadline through the passage of local laws in the past and has created the opportunity for building owners to apply for extensions to complete their inspections. The department certainly understands the concern building owners have raised and has focused on conducting extensive outreach to building owners to educate them about their new inspection requirement, which has resulted in increased compliance since the inspection requirements took effect. We thank the City Council for its attention to this important issue and look forward to continuing our work together to improve the department for the benefit of all New Yorkers. We welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I know some colleagues have questions, and so does my co-chair, but I guess I want to understand if local law 150 of 2016, I know there's 151 and 152, makes it unlawful to perform gas work unless the work is performed either a licensed master plumber or a person who holds a DOB-issued gas qualifications working under supervision. That seems to be, I know you said that, but I just want to have you expand on that a little bit.
Thank you, Councilmember, for this question. Yes, so it's department licensed master plumbers, and in addition to that, we issue gas qualification cards. Gas qualification, normally, the way it works, person qualified to perform gas work, working directly under direct supervision of the master plumber. And the way the system is established is we, as a Department of Building, we first of all give a course for and verifying compliance with knowledge required to perform gas work let me start it back. I'm sorry. So there are two types of gas qualification. There is full gas qualification and limited gas qualification. Right. Okay. So it's full gas qualification has a certain requirements like technically journeyman plumber can qualify for full gas work. We have limited gas qualification, which technically expired in the 5 years, and that a difference between with journey person performing work. There is, in order to become qualified, you need to take the 16 hours gas work course, which technically complied of verifying knowledge of your Chapter 4 of fuel gas code requirements. And in addition, if you involved, if a gas work installer plan to be involved in a welding, he needs to obtain or she needs to obtain requires certification from American Welding Society.
Okay, and how do you enforce the law? And also, how many staff people do you have to enforce the law? And I assume that any staff person is doing other things also, but obviously, I mean, both controllers and this committee have all talked about the lack of staffing. So how much have you done about enforcing, and who is the number? What's the number of people that have the ability to enforce, and how many vacancies do you have in that enforcement?
I'm just looking at my numbers. I believe we have okay, so it's I'm looking at my staffing budgeted count for plumbing inspection, 68 people.
6 to 8 people? Okay.
68, right, and actual head count is 61. So it's not such a tremendous shortage. I would say that we have sufficient number of people the way we perform work right now, and our service level for development inspections in 2 business days, which is kind of unprecedented, between 2 to 3 business days, which is unprecedented. And the way I see we can improve this even better is with introduction of artificial intelligence or remote inspections. Okay, this is how we can improve. Hiring additional staff, I don't believe it's going to change much the situation with that.
Okay, all right. Okay. Then the question I also have is how many, I guess either plumbers or those that are supposed to be working under them with the right qualifications, how many people have received any kind of a either taken their plumbing license away or any kind of an infraction? How many have received that in the last year, for instance, if any?
I don't have exact number how many licenses we took away, but I would say that we issued violations for unlicensed guest work.
Right.
Okay, and just give me a moment, I'm going to find this number. Page 8. Okay. So we have in 2020, we have, first of all, we have a number for work where we found plumbing work had been performed without permit. And I would say in 21 it was 1,150, in 22 was 842, and in 2023, year to date, 91.
Okay.
And in addition to answer a question, how many violations department issue where has plumbing work being performed by unlicensed individual, in 22 was 17,
Right.
and in 23 is 0 so far.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. So, Commissioner, you stated in your testimony that some owners have expressed hardship with conducting inspections that are required on a 4-year cycle by Local Law 152. So what is the present rate of self-certifications of buildings that are using licensed master plumbers?
There are several, this question kind of contains two components over here. When you use word self-certification, it's applied to the plumbing work done by under our development supervision. And what's happening when the plumber complete the construction project, he has ability to self-certify certain types of the project. And with that, it's like normally, not normally, but in most of the cases, plumbers choose to certify roughing inspection, roughing installation. But the department is, I cannot give you exact number, but this is quite high. I don't have it and I have to research for it. But the way it works, plumbers self-certify roughing installation and submit notification, what used to call a P98, submitted to the department, which gives department 48 hours opportunity to inspect this installation. And we do inspect these installations randomly, based on random selection. We don't have incur most of the, we don't incur a lot of issues with that installation.
Thank you. And on an annual, and living in a building, as your deputy commissioner knows, that is struggling with gas issues, what percentage of, it should be 100%, but what percentage of buildings that are undergoing gas work are in communication with DOB? Do you have any knowledge of, or how many violations is DOB, let me frame it this way, how many violations is DOB issuing on an annual basis for buildings that receive gas complaints, gas work is being conducted without proper licensing?
Yes, it's difficult to say because plumbing work, when project conducted in apartment or in the buildings, in most of the cases is contain variety of plumbing work, and it could be drainage, it could be water installation, and including gas. We do not have like a separate account only when it's a gas work. Based on the complaint for gas work, we can take a look. Do we have a complaint?
The same numbers on page 8.
Page 8, yeah. Right, so I guess we would just report it, so it's department is not specific to gas. I can say in 21 we issued 1,150 work without permit violations. And
I'm sorry, you said 21?
in 2021, and 2022 842, and 2023 year to date 91.
And how are these complaints coming in?
So through 311 system.
Okay, thank you. And you said that in most cases, plumbers choose to certify roughing and installation work. Is that what is required? Is there anything else that they should be reporting to DOB?
No, it's not. It's not required. This is option plumber has.
Okay, thank you. And you also spoke of DOB checking on this work randomly. So does the local law require DOB to audit self-certifications?
Do I have a local law? No, we don't have a local law to audit, but we do random spot check, not spot check, it's just random inspection. We have what we call enforcement unit, which contain 10 inspectors, and they do, based on random selection, verification of the installations.
Okay, thank you. And so what is the rate of that random spot checking? What percentage?
I would, I don't have an exact number for that, but I would say close to 100. It's quite high because normally plumbers expecting that inspection might occur, and they normally test the system and verify in the completeness of installation. So I would say passage rate is quite high.
Okay. So you said close to 100%?
I would say so.
Okay.
I don't have a specific number, I would have to check, but it's very high.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll ask one more question, and I know colleagues have questions as well. We can circle back. So in speaking, you talked about checking on the back end, the spot checks. But can you walk us through the process, if done correctly, of a building that wants a building, or if it's the owner or if it's the licensed master plumber? What is the process and what is the communication between DOB, that building, and the licensed master plumber? Seeking gas authorization specifically.
Of course. All right, so it's a regular owner or owner of the building decided to perform plumbing work. They're normally supposed to there are two types of filing available through DOB. You apply for a regular permit, or you apply for what we call LAA, limited application, limited alteration application, what we call LAA. So the way it works, if work does not involve removing of the walls or fire-rated partitions, you don't need to hire a licensed professional engineer. You can hire only plumber who will perform the work just moving pipes around. You have to find a licensed master plumber. Licensed plumber will fire for, in majority of cases, for LAA if they do it itself. And through LAA division, our LAA division will verify what type of filing, type of work to be performed, and issue the permit. Permit will reflect that the scope of work, reflect whatever the installation intended to be for this particular project. Once work initiated, and the plumber is supposed to initiate the work, if work contain, obviously, gas installation, plumber must hire or have on his payroll or her payroll a qualified gas installer. And in case if it gas work will involve welding, they also must verify that this person possesses welding certification as well. Once work completed, in part, let's say, gas work involved, and plumber decided to certify roughing installation, he can call or she can call to the department to announce that they are self-certifying this particular work. And in this case, department will have 48 hours to perform an inspection. Within these 48 hours, walls supposed to stay, the walls is not closed yet. Once this period expired, another trade may close the walls, and plumber may complete work with final finishes. One final inspection, one final installation complete, plumber can call for final inspection, and final inspections always performed by the department in presence of the inspector. If work involved gas work, and normally if you refer to the building, we're talking about installation of under pressure of half pounds per square inch, The system must be pressurized in presence of the inspector and keep the pressure unchanged within 30 minutes. Once inspector seated, the system can consider it as passed an inspection and final gas authorization issued. And after that, if gas was turned off by a utility company, gas can be turned on again.
That's actually exactly where I wanted to go. Just two quick follow-ups. Is the scope of work that the licensed master plumber puts forward, is that approved by the department? Or is,
It's considered approved. Any
to
permit,
be
whenever
approved.
the permit is issued, everything is considered approved by the department.
by, like, what's the title of the professionals at DOB that approved that plan?
Depends how you're filing. If you go, if a plumber file it through LAA, it's approved by the clerical staff based on the scope of work.
Okay.
But just not to say that it's LAA is subject to audit as well, so being audited by plan examiners. And if it goes through the regular filing, when a permit involved, it's approved by the plan examiner.
Okay, thank you. And right at the end, you said there's a role that the utilities play. What is the role of the utility at the end of the process?
Utility company normally, they turn on the gas when gas authorization issued. We do not communicate directly to the utility company. Normally it's initiated by the master plumber, but utility company alerted when gas authorization issued by DOB.
Sorry, they only listen to DOB, or do they do their own inspection as well?
They're looking for our authorization. If this authorization is not issued, they're not going to turn it on the gas.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Carr, and then we've also been joined by Councilmembers Joseph and Hudson, and Councilmember Ayala is on Zoom. Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, Chair Brewer, Chair Sanchez, for convening this important hearing. Commissioner, good to see you. I want to talk a little bit about timing. I think one of the things that I've heard in the prior administration was there was a lot of backlogs with LAA permitting. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done to sort of improve that and what the current sort of average time is for folks seeking permit approvals for gas work?
I believe at this point we do not have any sufficient or any backlog with LAA. Technically, LAA filing is a professionally certified type of filings, and we're not supposed to have a lot of rules, but I'm saying we're still applying our filters to make sure that nothing inappropriate goes through.
Okay.
In terms of plan examination, whenever the plumbing goes, my goal is to keep our turnaround of plan with 2 business days with new system DOB now we implemented. So it's where we're getting, we can't get exactly to 2 business days, but we're keeping between 2 to 5 days. Depends on the workload and depends on availability of plan examination and stuff.
So what I still hear anecdotally sometimes, usually I'm talking about like 3-family buildings at this stage, that there's a significant amount of time that goes on before they're able to get the authorization for the utility company to turn on the gas. Why would there be significant delays that would prevent a home from getting gas, particularly when we have, occupied units and it's cold season or a cold season's just around the corner?
Thanks, that's a great question. There is two sides of each story, okay? So we need to obviously look what's happening exactly. But yes, we pay attention whenever it's a cold season. In the winter time, we pay attention, the homeowners, so it's because we know the heat is important, and we pay, give priority to that. But in terms of authorization, as I said, there is only one thing. It's like you must pass the test, okay? We send an inspector, we pressurize the system. The system's supposed to contain this pressure for 30 minutes. And anything less than that happened, we are not gonna allow gas to be authorized. So there is always 2 sides, as I said, of this story. We need to take a look on each particular case. There is no intention to delay. Our service level is excellent. As I said, I'm very proud of it, and just only looking to make it better.
So in terms of, you talk about self-certification, a lot of this is done by master plumbers. At what point would DOB decide that's not good enough? Because I hear of situations where design professionals are required to get involved to do filings. Permits can be audited and determined that, a different procedure should have been employed in the particular instance. And that could be burdensome, right? To suddenly bring in a design professional where, you know, the plumber did their work, there was a final inspection and a sign off by DOB, but now there's another regulatory scheme at play. So can you kind of shed some light on that? Because I've heard that a couple of times from plumbing, master plumbers in my district serving the community, about why, you know, their procedures might not be good enough, and a design professional may need to be brought in to seek additional permitting from DOB.
Yes, okay, so this, thank you for this question. This is like more technical matter, as explained. There is circumstances where plumber filed the pipes which file a job which reflect on removal of the pipes. But as I said, whenever it's fire raising involves, egress involved, moving partitions, you have to hire a licensed professional who is engineer or architect, licensed engineer or a registered architect. That's the situation. We do not allow plumbers to file work which involved any types of removal, or the only thing plumber is allowed is whenever the piping is penetrated through fire-rated protection, fire-rated walls.
So anything more than replacement of the piping, then it would require a design professional?
Absolutely, right.
Okay.
So we're trying to keep this separate and responsibility separate, separation of duty of each trade involved in this construction project.
All right, thank you for your answers. Thank you, chairs.
Thank you.
Councilmember Barron?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. In the last decade, how many deadly gas explosions have there been?
It's, you know, I don't want to speculate.
You don't want to speculate. This is a hearing around safety. You had prior notice that you were going to be at this hearing. You shouldn't have to speculate. We should have some numbers on that. You know, it's interesting, I find too many commissioners come and say, thank you for the question, and then don't answer it, and say they have to get back to you, have to do some research. Do you know you have any number of deadly explosions that occurred that you remember, since you didn't come prepared for that?
Look, thank you for your question, as a matter of fact.
I would appreciate an answer.
Yes, we do. We discuss my initial testimony. If you're here, we talk about East Village gas explosion. Okay, so it's the deadliest in the history.
So about how many deadly explosions do you recall in the last year? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
We're not aware of any. Okay, so it's. I mean, there are. No. Just give me a second. Yeah. I'll ask Guillermo here.
Commissioner, just as you continue to answer, if you can pull the microphone a little bit closer to you.
Beyond the East Village gas explosion in 2015, we're not aware of any deadly gas explosions, but there have been gas explosions in recent years.
About how many gas explosions?
So in 2021, there was a gas explosion in Brooklyn and 58 Vermont Street. That was a two-family home. And then in 2022, there was also a gas explosion in 869 Fox Street in the Bronx.
So you know of 3?
Those 2 that I just mentioned weren't deadly. They didn't involve any fatalities, but they were gas explosions.
Take out deadly gas explosions. You have a number for gas explosions?
It'd be those 3 that we're aware of.
That's the only 3 you have within the last 10 years?
Yes, that we're aware of. Mm-hmm.
That you're aware of. Could there possibly be an explosion that you're unaware of?
I don't believe so.
So you're saying only 3?
That's 3 we are aware about.
That you're aware of. That's an interesting expression. Let's take those 3. Were there licensed master plumbers or certified plumbers from DOB that were under the supervision of a licensed master plumber? What was and how many inspections did those 3 have?
Okay. We have to clearly separate work performed by licensed master plumbers.
I got that.
Correct.
Only because I'm on a time limit. How many licensed master plumbers were at those three? Were they under?
I don't believe, none of them. That you
None
said.
of them.
Right. The point is over here that at least.
I'm only going to cut you because I need to cut to the chase because I have a time limit. So there were none at those three.
Not aware that any of those other master.
What about a certified DOB worker, certified by DOB? Was that done at any of those three sites?
No JB was involved in those sites in the construction
all?
work. It's an excellent question because we
I'm
have
not
to.
interested in excellent questions.
No.
I want excellent answers.
Right.
You're
So
good
it's-
at promoting our questions, but I need some excellent answers.
Right, but why I'm saying this, because it make me think and understand that we have to separate where crime occurred, and I consider this is a crime, and unlicensed or
But
unqualified.
still, that has
work.
nothing to do whether it was a crime, accident. I just want to know what role DOB played in inspecting and requiring licensed master plumbers or those under the supervision of licensed master plumbers, or did they have neither? Nothing.
We were not involved. We didn't have a chance to be involved in this.
All right, let me ask you another question. Do you, what is the cost of an inspection? Because you said some of the building owners said that inspections are costly and they also have difficulties finding licensed master plumbers.
This question probably would be better answered licensed master plumber.
That's another
Ms.
good
Mark.
question I'm asking? You find that to be another good question. Do you have the answer? What is the cost of an inspection? A range, because I know it might differ in different buildings. But what's the range?
I would say between 500 to 1,000, but I'm just guessing because I'm not a master plumber and I know what's
Well, you're not a master plumber, but you should be about inspections, and you should be monitoring inspections, so you should know how much an inspection would cost, because if building owners are saying it's too costly, you know, what does DOB respond to that? Because, I mean, we're talking about inspections, and you said every 4 years for inspections?
every 4 years.
Wow,
correct.
that's a long time to wait to be inspected. A lot of stuff could happen within 4 years. Is it because of the cost?
That's because of the law, the way the law is set.
That's the way the law stands?
Yep.
Well, change the law, we gotta change that law. I just want to say that I'm always fascinated by the fact that high-level commissioners can come to a hearing so unprepared and just cite how we ask good questions, and yet we don't get excellent answers. So I just want to encourage you, because this is a life and death issue, that we get serious about inspections, that we get serious about license, master plumbers, people under supervision, that you know more about deadly or non-deadly explosions, so we can have a safer buildings and keep people safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kagan?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I just was very surprised that you did not even mention gas explosion last year in Gravesend in my district, where mayor, DOB, and fire department, everybody was there on the scene of explosion. It was a big explosion, 69 Bay 35th Street, February 4th. It was a very bad explosion. Several people became homeless after that. 2 private homes were basically gone. It was a gas explosion, so I just wanted to clarify this for the record.
Thank you. Okay, I have more questions unless you have anybody else. How does DOB, oh, Councilmember Joseph, go ahead, go ahead.
Good morning. My quick question was, what's the current vacancy rate at DOB?
It's varied by the staff. It's plan examination and inspection is, we have, give me a second. Inspection rate is 10%, plan examiner 14%, administration and management 25%, and clerical only 6%.
That's the vacancy rate over there. So what position what position is responsible for reviewing the qualification for gas work?
It's inspector teams.
And how many do you have?
We have 10% vacancy rate. We have budgeted headcounts is 630 and actual headcount 567.
So altogether, you would to have how many inspectors? Give me a number.
567.
And how many do you have now?
That's what we have it right now.
And what are you
It's all
supposed to have at capacity?
630.
So how long does it take for you to do this kind of work? To
Kind
put
of.
in the inspection for the gas lines, how long does it take?
Our service level is 2 business days, I said.
How long?
2 business day.
2 business days? Okay, thank you.
I want to know how DOB proactively tries to detect unqualified gas work. I think we all feel that you need to do more than just respond to 311 complaints. So what do you do to be proactive? You know, you talked about spot checks. Is that the way that you are proactive, or how are you proactive to find the unqualified?
So besides doing spot checks and reacting on a complaint to 311, we are expanding our outreach to the community boards, to the public. We expanded our website dedicated with information to the homeowners. We're also going to introduce community-based inspection team who will be reaching out directly to the neighborhoods, populating and talking directly to the people, not just community board members, but directly to the residents of this of the community, explaining, handling flyers, answering questions, directing people to the proper DIB website, handling cards. So this is a new thing, it's never been done before. And obviously our outreach is included also, we're trying to buy some time on TV to run advertisement on MTA, with MTA. We do our TikTok videos, we have our social media platforms. So we use everything at our disposal to extend our outreach to the public.
So when people are buying a new appliance, how do you let them know, for instance, what is qualified and what is not? What paperwork they should be asking for, et cetera? Is that what you're talking about now when you say you're doing that outreach?
Yes.
Because people have no clue.
It's, our outreach, and I would say it works because I know if you call Costco no longer install gas stove in the houses. So it's in the same apply to Home Depot, and I know the stores, some stores handling the cards of licensed master plumbers to install gas appliance. So it means message seems to be working, our message.
Okay. There's more work to be done there. Has DOB taken action against plumbers who submit false documents, and if so, how many? We talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you could be more specific. How many plumbers have submitted false documents, and what actions do you take against them? And by the way, the whole department and city would collapse if Guillermo Patino was not here, just so you know. The whole city would collapse.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry. We have to get back to you on this information because we don't have it in front of me how many master plumbers were disciplined. But it's available on our website, so we need to take a look at it.
Okay, but it would be good to know. I have to tell you, that's an incredibly important question, I think. False documents, how many? That's a big deal to have false documents.
I can tell you on any given year, we have about 500 instances where we find not just plumbers, but other licensed professionals and design professionals who submitted false statements to DOB. We can get back to you with respect to how many are plumbing specific.
Okay. And the same thing about welders. Has DOB approved a gas authorization request where the licensed master plumber has not submitted a statement identifying the welder who has performed the work? Because I know welders part of this. I don't even know if we have enough welders in the city. I have no clue. But I want to know, has DOB approved gas authorization requests where there's no supporting documentation at all as to the legal qualifications of a gas pipe welder?
No, none of them.
None, zero?
No.
Okay. So what you're saying is there have been no problems with welders whatsoever?
I wouldn't say there's no problems, but not the problems which I am aware of. But you know, it's when finish inspection requested, master plumber must have been submitted information who performed the gas work and with a proper certification clarification who performed welding as well.
Okay. Does DOB audit the supporting documentation submitted by the LMP? If so, how frequently? How many staff at DOB? We talked about this, are trained to do that. And then we talked about the vacant positions. But do you audit the supporting documentation submitted by the master plumbers? And if so, how often and how many people do that? You talked about the clerks doing it. That's basically what you said earlier. But do you audit it on a constant basis? When is it, how often does it get audited, the supporting documentation?
Clerks only do, I just want to clarify, clerks only do audit of the work submitted as a part of LAA submission. For regular plumbing work submitted under development division, all the documents goes through the technical review and reviewed by assistant chief or chief plumbing inspector.
In the occurrences where a master plumber or an unlicensed plumber is disciplined for the records they submit or illegal gas line work, what is done to reinspect their other prior gas line work?
The way it works right now, if our inspector observed that work being done by unlicensed individual, stop work order being issued. In most of the cases, it's a partial stop work order to stop the work. And in this case, part of work which performed by a licensed individual, either has to be replaced or demonstrated to the department that it's efficient, that its quality of work and compromised.
And you feel like that is sufficient for any problems that might occur?
Right. So it's yes, I feel it's sufficient because based on the fact that it's gas inspection, final gas inspection will be performed by the department and witnessed by the department inspectors.
Okay. And if there is bad behavior and you find it, are fines high enough? Are stop work orders frequent enough? And have you seen instances where the master plumbers or unlicensed gas workers reoffend, participate in the same problem in the future?
I believe fines are sufficient at this point. Fines are ranging between $5,000 and $6,000 per occurrence. I wouldn't say that plumber would go to a high extent and try to reoffend, not in the same job. I never see this happening. It's happened with other trades, but master plumbers are more disciplined, and I never see recurrence, to answer that question.
Councilmember Yeager, thank you for being here, and Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you so much, Chair Brewer. So going back to the initial interaction between the licensed master plumber and DOB, when a construction job includes gas line work, what documentation, if any, does a master plumber have to include with the permit application before that permit is approved? What staff at DOB reviews that documentation, some of which you touched on, and what percentage of permit applications have been denied for insufficient work?
When a plumber is, it's again, my understanding you're referring to the work filed through LAA division, where no engineer or architect is involved.
I'm sorry, can you remind me what the LA division stands for?
So, sorry?
What the division, the name of the
LAA, Limited Alteration Applications. When the work it's filed directly by the master plumber by the, through LAA division, there is a paperwork need to be submitted to the master plumber, identify scope of work, identify capacity, number of installations, what type of installation, operating pressures, verifying, establishing his own credentials. It's being checked by our LAA division clerks, majority cases, and the permits has been issued. Once permits, sometimes when permits, if information is missing in any case or not sufficient enough to satisfy scope of work, obviously application is considered denied. Even if the permit is issued once it's, once the permit issued, application go through the audit. We involve our plan examiner staff to perform the audit on LAA applications. And percentage of it, I would say, I would just guess probably between like 5 to 10%, and majority of them it's because confusing or missing information that's denial based.
And those applications that are denied, they're confused or missing information, do they receive a greater level of scrutiny when they follow up?
They receive the scrutiny already because they're being reviewed, and obviously even something wrong, it means everything else being checked. Of course, yes, I would say it would be correct to say that they get a higher level of scrutiny, but inspection, it stayed the same as for any other level of applications filings.
Got it. How many inspectors are in the plumbing division, and how many focus specifically on gas inspections?
We have 57 inspectors total, with interchangeably used for the variety of inspections.
What about 57 focused on plumbing, or that includes
57 focusing on plumbing, and we have 10 inspectors who work for enforcement. They all, majority of work, they involve in gas work inspection.
Okay, so if these inspectors are inspecting for multiple topics, what plumbing qualifications do they have? What training do they have?
Majority of our inspectors are well-trained individuals who has experience working with industry, and they also go through the vigorous training of our building inspector academy.
Okay, do any of the DOB plumbing inspectors have a DOB gas qualification card?
I cannot answer this question. Maybe I need to check this. I don't have this record with me.
Okay.
I see it. And yeah, Guillermo clarifies that they're not required to have, because they're not doing physical work, they're just inspecting this work.
Okay. Do we know how many do have it?
No, we don't know. We don't know this number.
Does DOB check? Is this something you can go back to the agency and check?
We can check, but I don't think it's applicable because it's they're not performing gas work, they're just inspecting. So they don't need to have qualification to perform gas work.
Okay, so the fuel and gas code requires gas welders to adhere to Section 9 and be qualified to the ASME Section 9 and be qualified under the supervision of a certified welding inspector. Do any DOB inspectors hold the CWI qualification?
It's again, I don't know. I don't have this number with me. It's not required. It is that inspectors do not perform this work, so they do not require to have this certification.
Okay. Why doesn't DOB now show DOB gas qualification information on a gas work permit, and does a licensed master plumber not have to provide that info when applying for the permit?
Yeah, code required. Upon our permit indicate that there is a gas work involved on a permit application, and copy of the permit reflect that the gas work will be performed, and the master plumber required upon completion of the work to demonstrate to the department that gas qualified individual performed the work, including welding certification. Everything's supposed to be submitted at time of sign off.
But why isn't it online? Why isn't it available to the public?
Because it's submitted toward the end, that's why it was not online. We changed our procedure to submit it initially, so this way we can implement this to make public aware about this, to have this information available for the public as well.
Okay. Well, we'll be making sure to follow up on that just to make sure that information is available. And my last question, Madam Co-Chair, what is the status of the building marshal's office? Are they investigating illegal plumbing work?
Building marshal office does not exist anymore. Okay, at this time, so we changed the duty and we eliminate duty of building marshal office.
So where is that function within the agency?
We have multiple enforcement division. So we have a tenant protection unit, we have construction enforcement, plumbing enforcement, as well as electrical enforcement unit. We have special enforcement, we have padlock unit. So it's also distributed, covered by other units doing performing this work.
Understood. Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner.
There was a lot of concern, as I understand it, when the Plumbers Advisory Board was disbanded. How has that changed the discipline, and do you think that was a good idea? Should it be reinstated? How is the staff taking over that job, if they are?
Yeah, we're in communication with plumbing industry right now, in negotiation. It was eliminated from the requirements to have advisory board. And we're in communication in negotiation, I would say, with the plumbing industry to take to learn the lessons, because my understanding, the lessons learned from the prior years when the advisory board existed, left some negative feedback on our employees. So we're trying to understand what was not right, what was right. We're negotiating currently with plumbing industry. We think maybe we want to reinstate this, and how we want to reinstate it, we want to establish guidance and conditions, what licensing board will be tasked with, what staff, who is going to manage licensing board, who is going to attend the licensing board, who is going to manage the minutes, issue recommendation, technical guidance. So it's all these questions being discussed right now. There is no affirmative answer that it will be, but we're in negotiation, so that's good.
Okay, thank you. And then just back to the welders, because I know this is of concern. Has DOB approved gas authorization requests when the welder identified as having performed the work does not meet the legal qualifications to perform gas pipe welding? I know you've sort of answered that, but I would be really concerned about welders. I don't know how many exist. I know that we have obviously, a lack of plumbers, a lack of electricians, a lack of welders. CUNY, Department of Education, everybody needs to step up. That's not your problem, but it is the city's problem. So I'm just wondering, because there aren't a lot of welders, making sure that those who are doing the right job. So how do we make sure about the welders?
Okay, so in order to become qualified welders, you need to pass certification exam with American Welding Society. And once you...
That's the name.
You have to pass the certification exam with American Welding Society, and this involved obviously plumbing. It's not this certification is supposed to be maintained by master plumber, and in addition to passing the test, passing the classes required course, you need to pass the test with specified welding, specialized welding agency, and this agency will issue certification to the welder to perform the work. As I said, master plumber is supposed to submit this certification to the department upon requesting final sign-off to authorize the gas. In order to answer your question, how to make it more accessible and make it more than that, I was thinking about it, and I thought we have to understand that industry perspectives, that in order to become certified, you need not just to pay for the course, which involves sufficient financial expenses. You just need to pay for the time welder is supposed to take the course, for the time welder is supposed to take the test, to demonstrate knowledge, and this is all involved. And the only way to do this better is to bring welding to the job site, so see if we can certify welders based on actual work completion. So in exactly conditions where they're performing work along with a master plumber.
Okay.
That will sufficiently shorten the time.
Okay.
And expenses.
And in the outreach world, are there plans to make DOB now easier to use? People complain that it's not easy to use. Is that part of your outreach efforts?
Yes, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We never had a chance to hire graphic designers to make it more user-friendly. We tried to fit as much information. DOB now allowed us to obtain this service on precedented service level, because just simply explaining to you, it's we used to, as the way the filing with Department of Building used to work, applicant, architect or engineer bring entire set of plans, and submitted to the examiner, and the examiner going through the bunch of drawings could be hundreds of pages. And right now, DOB allowed to submit pages, to submit plans according to the work types. So project is broken into smaller projects, and the architect or engineer just coordinating between different trades, which is working exceptionally well. And this allowed us to create this, to obtain this extreme, like two business day service level, which we're striving to achieve. To make it more user-friendly, absolutely, that's our goal. We're looking at it because, as I said, it's too much information, and obviously when it's too much information, it's very difficult to recognize what is important. So right now our efforts is concentrated to understand what is important for each particular viewer. And if you can customize this, like if you look for homeowners, that's important for your licensing individual, scope of work, who is involved in the work. Okay, so that's not important for maybe for owner, what's zoning, for this particular area. So that's what customization is. Obviously, it's our goal, and we're looking at this to apply this to DOB now. So.
All right, thank you. I don't think there are any other questions. We thank you for participating today, and I'm sure there'll be much more as time goes on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now be turning to public testimony. I'd like to invite our first panel, which will be an in-person panel, up to the table. That'll include Patrick Walsh, Robert Stolberg, and Arthur Klock.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
We're ready whenever you are. Thank you very much for joining us.
Who's gonna go first, you? Yeah, I'm gonna introduce you.
Good morning. Chair Brewer, Chair Sanchez, members of the Committees on Oversight and Investigations and Housing and Buildings. My name is Patrick Walsh, and I'm a partner in the law firm Stolberg & Walsh, counsel to Plumbers Local Union Number 1. I'm joined by my partner, Robert Stolberg, and the Director of Trade Education for Local 1's Trade Education Fund, Arthur Klock. On behalf of Local 1, we thank you for the opportunity to address the committees on this matter of urgent public concern. The union represents more than 6,000 plumbers, welders, and other skilled tradespersons throughout the city. Some 700 of the union's members proudly work for the city itself. Founded in response to the city's urgent need for sanitary water and safe, reliable gas, the union has had a foundational commitment to public safety for well over a century. The union's officers serve on DOB licensing boards and code committees, establish best practices for the plumbing industry, and have trained tens of thousands of journeymen and apprentices. In 2016, in response to deadly gas explosions across the city, this council and the Committee on Housing and Buildings convened hearings to act to improve and enhance gas safety. Mr. Klock was among the union's officers who testified in those hearings in support of legislation to increase oversight of highly hazardous gas work. The result of those hearings was that the council passed a landmark package of laws to prevent future catastrophic gas explosions. The linchpin of that package of laws was Local Law 150, which established a new qualification for performing gas work. The law unequivocally made it unlawful to perform gas work unless such work is performed by a licensed master plumber or a person with a DOB-issued gas qualification working under the direct and continuing supervision of a licensed master plumber. The purpose of the gas qualification was to make sure that only the most experienced, skilled, and highly trained individuals can perform dangerous gas work. But this new gatekeeper requirement only works if it's enforced. And unfortunately, DOB, the gatekeeper, has not enforced it. Almost as soon as the law took effect, in January 2020, the union discovered wholesale non-compliance with the gas qualification requirement. Workers lacking the gas qualification continued to perform gas work in large residential towers, schools, luxury hotels, and other buildings throughout the city. Even more disturbing, the union discovered that DOB did nothing at all to enforce the gas qualification or other pre-existing requirements for gas pipe welding. The union learned that DOB routinely approved gas work authorizing the gas to be turned on when its own records demonstrated that the welder who did the gas work lacked the gas qualification. The union also learned that DOB routinely approved gas work when the licensed master plumber failed to submit any of the legally required documentation at all, including a statement identifying who welded the gas piping and a welder qualification report, a document which must be witnessed by a representative of the contractor, certifying that the welder is in compliance with Section 9 of the ASME Boiler and Pressure Vessel Code. For more than 2 years, the union brought these concerns to DOB's attention. The union wrote letters, filed complaints, made Freedom of Information law requests, and met with top DOB officials. It identified for DOB specific contractors using unqualified welders. It directed DOB to specific job sites where unqualified welders were performing illegal gas pipe welding in real time. And it identified possible falsification of records in submission to DOB by contractors. DOB, however, refused to investigate the union's complaints and stopped responding to the union's inquiries. Instead, it simply chose not to enforce the law, approving hundreds of gas requests every week in violation of Local Law 150 and welder certification requirements. DOB's abdication of its responsibility to enforce these requirements has created a public safety time bomb, which undermines the entire purpose of City Council's 2016 enactment, to increase gas safety and oversight. Regrettably, the department's refusal to do its job has forced the union to take legal action to compel DOB to perform its mandatory duty to protect public safety by enforcing the gas qualification and welder certification requirements. We're disappointed to report that since the union filed its lawsuit in December 2022, DOB's abdication of responsibility has continued. A review of the DOB Now portal since the lawsuit was filed confirms that DOB continues to approve gas requests at a rate of hundreds per week with no supporting documentation at all, or where DOB's own records confirm that the welder identified as having performed the gas work lacks the requisite gas qualification or welder certification. Mr. Clark will address additional systemic problems concerning DOB's oversight of gas safety, including non-compliant inspections, the elimination of the Master Plumber's License Board, and the disbanding of the Office of the Buildings Marshal. The union shares and welcomes the City Council's commitment to assuring that gas work is safely and legally performed throughout the City of New York in full compliance with the package of laws that the Council enacted 6 years ago. Thank you.
My name is Arthur Clark, and I've worked in the plumbing and gas fitting industry in New York City for more than 40 years. I'm currently Director of Trade Education of Plumbers Local 1 Trade Education Fund. I was described as an officer. I've never been an officer of the union. The fund I work for is jointly managed by the union and the Employers Association to do training. There's an unpleasant subject here that needs to be focused on, that focuses on two words: safety and enforcement. Without enforcement, there is no safety without enforcement. We know that. These terrible gas explosions, tragic, in 2014 and 2015, were preventable. Afterwards, the City Council looked into this. They asked the plumbing and gas fitting industry to come in and speak to them about what might be done. A package of 10 bills was put together to make sure that the things that had happened before wouldn't happen again. These 10 bills, had they been enforced, or were they being enforced, would make a big difference in gas safety. Recently, the city has talked about doing away with gas altogether. And we accept that that's something that's going to happen in the future. But we also know that, 10 years out, 20 years out, there's still going to be gas in this city. As people move away from gasoline-operated cars, those who can afford a Tesla, or the city when they buy an electric bus, they run it up and down Fifth Avenue. They don't bring it to the outer boroughs, right? It's for those that can afford it. The same thing is going to happen with gas. Those that can afford to move away from gas and move to heat pump technology and things like that are going to be the people who have the money to do that. But for the next 10, 20, 30 years, people of less means are going to be still using gas. We need to bring gas safety to the forefront, because as we transition away from gas, it'll become less well-funded and less attention will be paid, and there'll be more danger than there is currently. I brought up 7 points in my written testimony. It's too much to read to you all right now, but I hope you'll look through those 7 points. Number 1 is improper or non-existent pipe welder qualifications, which the DOB blatantly ignored. The folders were empty. We looked in the folders. They were empty. Or they had improper qualifications. We called an inspector who was sent up onto a job site while we stood in the street. He came down and told us, it's okay, he has a structural welder's license. We said, that's not the qualification that's needed for pipe welding. He's not qualified for pipe welding. Oh, he isn't? They didn't know that. It's their own license. 2, appliance stores doing regulated gas work illegally using truck drivers and delivery men. Home Depot, PC Richards, other big box stores, Lowe's, they sell installation at a price. And they allege to the customer that the people will be qualified. They're not. It's a truck driver with a pair of pliers, and he goes up and manhandles a live gas line in an occupied building. And when this is reported to DOB, what did they do? They came to us with a proposal that we drop that from the code, and therefore anybody can do it. The fire department, the NYCHA, everybody was horrified. What, can this really be what you're suggesting? Then they hung up on the conversation, right? 3, the DOB's arbitrary elimination of the Master Plumbers License Board after 50 years of service. This is a peer review committee that's existed for 50 years. When they bring somebody in and they say, this guy wants to be a licensed master plumber, well, let's look at his background. Also, when they bring somebody in for discipline, could this have been a simple mistake that any plumber could have made, or is this something blatant? This was strictly advice. It was all up to the agency to do what they want to do, but they got the advice from experts, which they now eschew. They do not want that advice anymore. DOB's complete non-enforcement of the requirements for a worker to have a gas qualification. This is something important that was put in place in 2016. Who is allowed to touch gas pipe and who is not allowed? Who is qualified, has the training? The commissioner sat here, he never mentioned that they charge $525 to take a test to show that you are qualified. Common middle-class working plumbers had to put out $525 to take a test to show that they're qualified to do their own job that they were doing for years. We accepted that. We lived with that. But did it make any difference to DOB? No. They issued the cards, then they never asked to see them. And they never notified anybody in the public. Someone comes into your house to work on gas, all you should be able to have to do is say, I want to see your gas card. Just like you'd say, I want to see your driver's license. But nobody knows about it. It's a big secret. 5, the recent disbanding of the Office of the Buildings Marshal. You know, safety through the Buildings Marshal, we reported all the fake OSHA 30 cards we found. We reported all the fake SST cards that we found to the Buildings Marshal, and they investigated that. Where were they coming from? They shut down a couple of bogus safety training programs that were issuing OSHA 30 cards to people who didn't sit in a room for more than an hour. They disbanded this group, and now, as far as I know, nobody does that work. They also looked into illegal gas work when we brought it up. As far as I know, nobody's specifically doing that. They talked about some other people who are now going to do other things, but he didn't say they were going to do this. 6, elimination of the reporting requirement for work deemed ordinary plumbing and gas work. For the last 15 years, there's been a category, OPW. These were minor plumbing jobs. Require a master plumber, absolutely require. But it was decided that rather than filing a permit, in order to make it easier for people who just need a simple job done, that the master plumber did not need to take out a permit at all, not an LAA or other permit, but could simply file a report at the end of the month, listing the block and lot number of the building and what they had done. This was to help the public and cut costs. They have recently proposed that we do away with the reporting of this. If you do away with the reporting, there is zero paper trail. You're encouraging bad actors. It's like laying food out and waiting for the rats to come and eat it. You have to either have a permit or you got to have a report. You can't simply say, it's required that a master plumber do the work, but we don't want to know about it. This is exactly what they just told us. 7, ineffective enforcement and zero follow-up of hundreds of illegally done gas safety inspections. Hundreds by one plumber in 1 month. And when they brought that guy in and they said, your inspectors are not qualified to be inspectors, they let him go with a $10,000 fine and they give him 6 months probation, like double secret probation, and they told him, from now on, you have to follow all the rules. What about the hundreds of buildings in the 1 month period that they audited, right? What about those hundreds of buildings that were inspected by unqualified inspectors? Did they send anybody back? Did they tell this plumber, you have to go re-inspect those buildings? Or did they even call the building owners and say, your building was inspected by unqualified people? They just swept it under the rug. The guy took a $10,000 fine and walked out the door. And that was only in a 30-day period. He had been doing inspections before that for a long time. Probably as well, many of them, most of them, by unqualified inspectors. It's a disgrace. I urge the committee to read through my testimony for details on each of the issues listed above, and that you carefully consider the safety implications for the citizens of our city. Codes and laws have no meaning without enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question, and thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing your testimony. The Office of the Building Marshal, so I asked DOB about the Office of the Building Marshal during Q&A, and they said, don't worry, the functions are now spread out through different parts of the agency. What is your perspective on that response?
You know, if somebody whose issue is spread out, that means they're not going to focus on it, right? They've got lots and lots of other things to worry about. So you take a critical issue like gas safety and a critical issue like worker safety training, the whole thing about the SST cards. These were issues where we're looking to focus, not to spread out. You see what the results are when they spread out. They're spread thinner and thinner, and they're not enforcing what's out there. I think it was a mistake. I understand there was some logic of their own, but to take a guy with a badge who says, hey guy, you're doing something wrong, and then spread it onto some clerks, it's not the same thing. I think it was a mistake.
Thank you. That's helpful. I just want to acknowledge Council Members Yeager, Felice, and Caban, who are also with us today.
So I know you mentioned in your testimony that you are, thank goodness, teaching at the Department of Education. So I wanted to know, even though it's not specific to today, is DOE focusing on turning out more plumbers, welders, et cetera? Thank goodness you're there.
Well, we are focused on that. I work for a joint training fund that's contractors and the union work together to fund this. And we work very hard to turn out welders. We are recognized by the DOB as a welder qualification agency. So we bring people in, we train them, and then test them. They have to pass a test. We do first a visual exam by a CWI, which is the category certified welding inspector that I said the DOB doesn't have. I don't know how they checked the bad welding when they're not qualified to check the bad welding. Did they hire a CWI? No. So how did they check it? We train people to do that, and that's just for welder qualification. Gas qualification, we also train for that, and as our apprentices are graduating now, when they're apprentices, they get that limited card, which is like a learner's permit, and then as they graduate, they get their full certification to do gas work. All of our members had to go, and even though they'd been doing gas work for years, they had to prove they were capable and competent. So we've put a lot of effort into this. We really bought into what happened in 2016 to improve safety, but what we found is that the DOB didn't buy in.
Well, thank you. And then the same question along the Marshall issue of the Plumbers License Board. I asked about it, and it seems like it was, disbanded, as you stated, and there are negotiations going on. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't really know what it means either.
What he said.
The reality is that arbitrarily and against strenuous objection by the industry, They decided that because it was in the code and not a local law, they could just make it disappear by modifying the code. I sat on the code committee that he so glowingly referenced. I objected strenuously, as did the other people on the code committee, to the Master Plumber's License Board being just made to disappear. But nonetheless, that's exactly what happened. It just disappeared out of the code. They zapped it, right? And they told us, before it even was gone, they stopped holding meetings. And they said, we don't need you anymore. And they just decided they didn't need any peer review, they didn't need any advice, they didn't need anything. They'll make their own decisions and conduct their own affairs as they see fit. There's also something called BSIU, which is a higher level of enforcement. They don't refer things to BSIU on a routine basis. When they find criminality, when they find illegal work, when they find people submitting falsified documents, they don't refer it to BSIU. They handle it in-house, make their own decision, and let people walk out the door.
Where are you with the lawsuit? Where?
I'm a fact witness in the lawsuit only.
You got a lawyer
I'm a
there.
member of Local 1, but I'm not an author.
You got a lawyer there.
The lawsuit's pending in Supreme Court in New York County, and DOB will be filing responsive papers to the verified petition later this week.
I mean, I think your listing of the 6 or 7 challenges is extremely clear, and we'll be following up with lots of letters. It's not the end of the hearing per se. So even though we got some answers that are not appropriate from DOB, we can use your testimony and that of others to ask questions that didn't get answered today. So I really appreciate your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'll now be calling up our next panel. It'll include George Basilino, Arthur Goldstein, Terrence O'Brien, and April Moiver.
I can't hear, I was up right here. That's my problem right now. Yeah.
All right, guys. What? Yeah, I think we'll.
Whomever would go ahead, whomever would like to go ahead, go ahead.
You guys don't mind if I go? I have to go.
What?
I have to go press.
Okay. Oh.
I think it's on. Hello? Okay, yes, it's on.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to start, if that's okay. Great. Thank you so much for your time today, for holding this hearing on this very important topic. My name is April McIver. I'm the Executive Director of the Plumbing Foundation of the City of New York. It is a nonprofit trade association founded in 1986, representing small and large, union and non-union licensed master plumbers, engineers, manufacturers, and suppliers. One of the greatest topics in our industry is gas safety. We've been working with the New York City Council, the Department of Buildings, Con Edison, National Grid, and other organizations for a better part of the decade on gas safety, including Local Law 150 and 152 of 2016. I'm still processing a bit of what the department have testified today. I know that there are a lot of unsatisfied answers that we were also hoping to hear about today. So like I said, I'm still processing, but I do encourage, I have written testimony that I submitted. As Mr. Clark said, mine is more comprehensive than what I'm going to speak about. So I do encourage you to look at it. But a couple of things that I wanted to mention. The staffing crisis, we also heard that was an issue, so I was a little surprised to hear the commissioner say that that's not necessarily a problem. I still think it probably is an issue, and we do encourage that to be looked at during the budget season. The other couple things that I did want to mention, as highlighted in my testimony, include recommendations to strengthen enforcement and transparency. So that includes the DOB Now portal. I know that they said they were working on that. What's the public-facing portal? But I do think it's very important to not only see who the DOB gas qualified person is working on a job up front, but also we should be able to view local law 152 inspections. Right now, it's just a portal that a document gets submitted to, and I've had to submit FOIL requests to look at those documents, but it should be public-facing. The other issues that I think are very important to highlight include, here I'm just going to skip over that, the license board, which we talked about, I think, at length. I did want to say that a lot of what Mr. Clock testified to, we are in complete agreement on. And the marshal's office, the thing about that is I don't really know where we're supposed to be issuing tips. So part of what my organization does is I get tips from the industry, from building owners. People feel more comfortable sometimes going through my organization over 311. And I would always give those tips to the marshal's office. And now I don't know who I'm giving it to. And we have asked, and nobody's responded on that. So I'm going to defer to my colleagues at the table, but I do encourage you to read the full testimony that I submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, and you have a good newsletter. We read your newsletter. I don't always understand your newsletter, but I read your newsletter.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'll be brief, and mind you, I have a little problem hearing. I have a sinus infection, so if I'm yelling, I apologize. Councilman Brewer, Councilman Sanchez, I think I've known each other for many years. My name is Terrence O'Brien. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Associated Contracting Plumbers, counter to Plumbers Local 1. We've been around since 1881, the longest standing, first of its kind organization in the country. Like I said, most of the information that Ms. McIver, my colleague, has said, mind you, I also have a dual role besides running the association. I'm the senior advisor to the foundation. And that foundation came about in 1986 when my organization, the parent organization, decided there's better than union, non-union issues. This is a global entity, the foundation. I'm speaking on behalf of the association, but everything runs in tandem. The attendance that she talks about, I talk about as well. But giving a little bit of guidance on consideration about this whole thing. I grew up in DOB. I understand how it operates. I'll say this, my father was IG, First Deputy, Acting Commissioner. I live and breathe DOB like no one else. I have a soft spot for him. A lot of what they said today hasn't changed too much. Unfortunately, a lot of non-answers, like they said, hasn't changed too much. But as Ms. McIver alluded to, the fact that DOB said their staffing levels is sufficient is amazing, because I don't think anyone in this chamber would agree that they have enough staffing. Every agency needs more so with DOB than others, considering it's a life-saving organization. As I mentioned, I also be remiss not to mention that DOB at the time, in 2016, then Commissioner Chandler, under a different administration, vehemently opposed that the 10 bills in that package, at least a couple of them, 150 and 152 in particular, DOB said they didn't want that. I never heard of an agency in the purview of enforcement and safety being contrary to that. All this is sharing light on it, which is kind of absurd. Regarding budget, I said again, I implore the City Council during the budgetary hearings process to actually look at DOB in terms of increasing staff, and not just their line items for overall, but the inspector level is kind of, I think, not in tandem where it should be. Like I said, most of these things, not a single person in this panel or the previous one says anything different. The industry as a whole doesn't mind regulation. They actually implore it because it roots out a lot of problems. I think DOB has a fundamental issue. Like I said, I have a soft spot for them. I feel for them, but they also shirk a lot of their responsibility. And I don't understand why in this day and age with technology, they should be actually comprehensively asking for and categorizing and making things more public. They're doing the exact contrary. So with that, I yield the rest of my time back to the rest of the panel.
Hello. George Basilino, Technical Director for the Master Plumbers Council. Qualifications for gas work are just one component required for gas safety. They're tangible proof of a person's ability and, more importantly, authority to perform gas work. The subject matter is very technical, but the takeaway for this committee should be very simple. You're either properly qualified or you're not, and you have to have those qualifications before you do the work. Gas safety is public safety. Council's priority must be to determine if the level of enforcement is effective. How do we determine effective enforcement? Is it measurable? Is it affordable? Is it attainable? Why do some people make the choice not to comply with the code? Is it cost? Is it ignorance? Or because they feel that they will not be held accountable? Does perception that a code is not being enforced make people think that they don't have to follow it? Do people believe that if a code is not important, that it doesn't need to be followed? That logic is very dangerous if it's applied to gas safety. What if they decide then, if they're not going to follow gas safety, if they won't follow other plumbing sections? Enforcing only some sections of the code could create a dangerous dynamo effect. Enforcement must be applied to all equally, not just the licensees. To be deemed effective, it must provide a deterrent effect. It requires a streamlined work process, adequate messaging, discipline, and violations. Conditions that allow some to violate the code must be diminished or removed. The plumber protects the health of the nation. That's only true when licensed plumbers and qualified persons do this work in accordance with the code. We're presently seeking to have 3 bills introduced, 2 directly related to gas safety and the other would benefit the code enforcement, and that's the license board. The MPC and our industry partners recently had a productive dialogue with the commissioner and his senior staff to discuss them. The commissioner personally presided over this meeting, and it was made clear that the department does not want unqualified persons doing plumbing and fuel gas work. We agree and look forward to working with the department and council to move this legislation forward. Okay. As stated, natural gas is being replaced, and during the wind-down process, we must guard against paying less attention to it. In 2016, the council passed 10 gas safety laws in response to tragic gas explosions. Tragic because they were preventable. Preventable had the existing codes, rules, and procedures in place been followed. The same conditions that existed then still exist today, and effective enforcement is essential to prevent them from recurring. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Arthur Goldstein, represent the Master Plumbers Council. I don't have prepared testimony, just a couple of comments maybe to answer some of the questions. What I think is needed here is a combination of things. Public education with maybe the mayor, the city council joining together, the building commissioner, and educating the public through public service announcements on gas safety and using licensed master plumbers. The problem I think was commented in some of the early testimony. Why don't some owners use master plumbers to do the work? Well, some of it has to do with the cost of filing. So if you reduce the cost of filing, or possibly eliminate it, you take that factor out of it. If you walk into a Home Depot and you purchase a $700 stove, and now you have an add-on of whatever that installation costs, and usually in the $300 range, but that person's unqualified. If they were doing it right, they'd also have to pay for a permit. So in the proposed legislation that we discussed earlier in the year with the Chair of Housing and Buildings and Council staff, we moved to change that. Thanks to the council staff's interaction with DOB and our meeting last week, we think we're going to have some movement on that, the meeting with DOB last week. Just on the license board, last week that issue was discussed with DOB, and the commission is going to put forth, as I think he tried to describe, I don't think he's against putting back the licensing board. He didn't take it away, previous commissioner did. So we're waiting for some comments from Mr. Patino to tell us what they want this advisory board to look like going forward. The council, at the end of the last session, council staff, after hearing our dialogue on it, actually has a draft bill that the commission is looking at to add language to. So we're here for questions.
Thank you very much. I mean, one question I have is on the staffing, because it does seem to me, first of all, I think the city council is going to push on staffing. Obviously, it's not just DOB. Every single agency is in trouble. But I just wanted to know specifically, if we do push on staffing, what would be the way of type of staffing, places where you think it needs to be improved? That might be everywhere. But I just wanted to get a little input on that. Staffing, staffing, staffing. Because that means enforcement. Without staffing, you don't have enforcement.
Sure. I think one of the things we heard was there are people wearing multiple hats. I think there should be people dedicated to certain work, especially gas safety at DOB, I would say, very simply.
This is not totally germane to your question, but the question was posed to DOB how proactive they are in terms of unlicensed activity. DOB is, by definition, unfortunately, is more reactionary than proactive, but they used to actually have sting operations to root out unlicensed activity, not just plumbing. I mean, you can use this discussion, this talk about gas work, applicable to elevators, electrical. It's systemic. There's no question about it. But that's one thing DOB in the capacity, they're getting more and more insulated, and that's part of their domain of getting rid of the licensing board, marshal's office, no sting operations because they said they're not proactive. They just go out and put stuff on community boards. That's all well and good, but you need to actually catch bad apples in the action, and they don't seem to be doing that.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick follow-up. To your knowledge, you know, we don't have the marshal's office anymore. You mentioned that you don't know where to complain, but when you do submit or complaints are submitted to 311, to your knowledge, what happens to those?
So what we typically do is we don't go through 311. There was a building marshal's email and also BSIU, depending on the type of complaint it was, whether it's illegal plumbing work, illegal plumbing advertisement, which happens more often than anything else really, or if it's what we call a cover-up plumber, a plumber who's just giving their license out to otherwise illegal plumbing work. So we have direct email addresses with the department. In the last couple weeks, we've been sending it to the email addresses that we always use. We have not gotten any response, even regarding, okay, this is the new way to report it. So we did talk to somebody last Friday about it, and we are waiting for a response from the department on where we should be sending these.
Okay, thank you. And do your members, constituencies, do they ever submit through 311? Do you have knowledge of what happens in that mechanism outside of your direct?
I mean, I personally
contact?
have submitted through 311 when I was living in Manhattan, when I was actually seeing work in a building that I had lived in, and it gets forwarded to the department. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't ever remember getting a response myself. But I mean, if anybody has anything else on 311, I think that's a good question.
To that point, and with the marshal's office, they give you a tracking number. 311, it's an abyss. Directly with marshal's office or DOB, as much as we are, trying to, I won't say belittling them, but we are critical of them today, they had processes where you could follow up. It may not be in a timeline that made sense to the industry. When you catch someone red-handed, it shouldn't take 6, 12, 18, 24 months, but at least you had a reference point to go back and see where they were on something. Right now, I'm not sure what that process is.
Got it, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Well, part of our proposal, if they did reinstate the license board, the second function of it is advisory for illegal practices. And we had a plan to propose to create a task force. The board is composed of industry subject matter experts, plumbers, fire suppression contractors. Those people can identify what to look for and put together a task force, let's say, that would be able to handle a complaint all the way through. Because you have both licensed plumbers, unlicensed plumbers doing this work, and it really needs somebody to put everything together. And as I said, a deterrent effect, if you catch plumbers doing certain things, once that's published, you are going to eliminate and greatly reduce the amount of those occurrences. Same thing with unlicensed plumbers. That's the answer to this problem. Thank you.
Do you ever report to the Department of Investigation, or that wouldn't be something that you would do, just out of curiosity?
Well, that being said, so they talk about BSIU. BSIU is a subset within, even though it's controlled by DOB, historically it was an IAD component. So yes, they were a little more proactive, but like I said, they're reactionary as well. But they had a pretty hefty payload and brief of their own part. But things do move there, but I'm not sure in the last couple of years if it's been to a level. It was better many years ago, put it that way. Both unlicensed activity and work on licensed cover-up actors.
Again, I served on the licensed plumbing and fire suppression license board until it was disbanded. And years ago, when people were brought before, the people on the board would be able to say, okay, this person made an innocent mistake, or this person, did it on purpose. And we're able to advise the department and BSIU on exactly what's happening. As you can see, there's a lot of very technical subject matter here. And it's really important to have people in that advisory capacity that can break it down to very simple terms. Like I said, you're either properly qualified or you're not. That's all you really need to know. And it breaks down to such a simple place. So sometimes when BSIU gets something, they're really not sure of the gravity of it.
Well, I just want to reiterate that we're going to be following up using your testimony and others for questions, a letter. This is not the end of this conversation, and I really appreciate you being here today. This is a very important topic, and we are going to follow up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your newsletter again.
Please add me. Thank you.
Thank you, chairs.
We'll now turn to our only Zoom panelist, that is Vadier Raymond. Vadier Raymond, you may begin upon the sergeant's announcement.
Time starts now.
Vadier Raymond, we can't hear you. You've been unmuted, so if you're there, please use, if you can hear us, please use the Zoom raise hand function. Chair, I'm not seeing a hand raised, so I think we can close it out. Vadier Raymond, if you're there, go ahead and deliver your testimony. If not, we'll move on.
All right. Hopefully this person will submit testimony since they're not here. I want to thank my co-chair, Councilmember Sanchez. I want to thank everyone who testified. This is a topic that we take very seriously, and we will be following up. This hearing concludes. Thank you very much.